XCOM has been such a huge game in the tactics space that any tactics game that has released under the shadow of the giant has never been able to reach mass critical reception. But what if someone made a Star Wars tactics games in the veins of an XCOM? Do we finally have a game that will beat the 500-pound gorilla of the tactics genre? Ladies and gentlemen, Star Wars Zero Company was recently announced, and I waited for the reveal of what I hoped for was to be gameplay, only to be greeted with a trailer that was 95% cutscene and 5% gameplay. So, allow me to make what I can from it, or at least the information that they have shared to us so far. Star Wars Zero Company is being developed by Bit Reactor and Respawn under Electronic Arts. This team has a bit of a pedigree with strategy games. On Respawn's corner, we have Jim Vasella, narrative director. And those of you fans of classic RTS games probably would have heard his name during the development of Command & Conquer Remaster. Jim was pushing forward that project from EA's side of things and collaborating with Petroglyph. This time it's not an RTS, and many publishers are rather wary about entering the tactics space. We've had Paradox burned by it when they had harebrained schemes make a new tactical game IP with the Lamplighters League. Paradox later revealed that it was perhaps the miscalculation to do a new IP in the tactics space, considering people are still probably playing XCOM and XCOM 2 to this day, and the genre hasn't really managed to grow. Even Me Games, who makes real-time tactics games, had to close doors last year. It's not really a genre that has shown resilience in a slow video game market, at least in terms of a big budget game. But Beat Reactor does have some of the team, at least some of the people who worked on XCOM. I'm not exactly sure whether it was the sequel or the original XCOM, but that's been pointed out. And together with Respawn, there is maybe a bit of a differences with this project because they have a massive license to work with. Star Wars. You can't outdo XCOM if you build something brand new, but with the Star Wars name behind them, this could be interesting. It definitely reaches out to a much wider audience than just tactics fans. So the big talk about Star Wars Zero Company is it's just XCOM with a Star Wars shell. That's perhaps a little bit harsh, I'd admit, but if you want to work with a familiar foundation, the modern XCOM's formula of tactics is the most widely known and also used by multiple developers for multiple games to this point. It's so established that devs aren't willing to reinvent this tactics wheel. Yeah, I don't think we are going back to the days of using action points, although I do love a classic XCOM style game like this game, Xenonauts. But no, this game, Star Wars Zero Company, is made for the masses. They aren't going to make the game more complex than it has to be. Star Wars Zero Company, from what we know, will be featuring some deep-cut Star Wars characters, and interestingly, you can also make your own characters if you want a completely customized roster of heroes. From different species types to class, you have the usual suspect of Jedis, astromechs, even a former Republic soldier or officer. You can craft the experience that you want out of this game. So this means it's not about any specific character, but an overarching bigger narrative take on your ragtag band of heroes or anti-heroes. The game is set during the Clone War period of the Star Wars lore, and there is some bigger strategic galactic level war that is being fought here. I'm still rather uncertain how they'll pull off the story, mixing characters they've put in the story with a backstory and such, and new characters, custom characters that you create. And I've heard that the death of characters can have an impact on the story. Exactly how, I don't quite know. Oh yeah, there's also going to be optional permadeath, of course, because your characters can die permanently. So maybe don't get too comfy with any single character, or just turn permadeath off. The press release mentions that you will be playing a main protagonist, Hawk or Hawks, I think it's Hawks, and he or she would be fully customizable. I'm thinking much like Commander Shepard in Mass Effect. So story is a big cinematic thing that the team emphasized, which is why they have so many parties working on this game, including Lucasfilm Games. So I guess that there will be a main protagonist in your team, and the rest of your team can be these authored characters or characters that you actually build from scratch. They didn't show this in the trailer, but like XCOM or even Midnight Suns HQ section, in this game it's called the Den, and you get to do the usual things like customizing your characters, upgrading them, even socializing with these characters. But what they added about the Den was that it has the largest, most interactive Star Wars galaxy map ever. Exactly how this comes into gameplay, I'm not exactly sure, but that's something that I hope that they will reveal soon. Of course, what we are all eagerly waiting for is more details on the tactical battles. How does it twist or stick to the XCOM formula of tactics games? The game is due out in 2026, so there's a lot of time from now till then for them to share more details. I do think that Star Wars Zero Company could have the potential, and I strongly believe this is what EA and even Disney will hope, that people that played games like Jedi Survivor or even Ubisoft's Star Wars Outlaws, the greater Star Wars universe of games, to check out Zero Company, even if this is probably their first strategy game. I think there's a net benefit to this, to the strategy game genre. I'll be keeping a close eye on the development of Zero Company as a fan of XCOM. I think they got something really good here. With a massive license like Star Wars, well, EA better not ruin it. Respawn though has done well with it, and it remains to be seen if Bit Reactor is able to emulate what Respawn did, but for the tactics genre. Anyway, tell me in the comments, are you looking forward to Star Wars Zero Company? Are you still playing XCOM and XCOM 2? Because I think a lot of you do. And if there's any other tactics game that you think is S tier like XCOM, do share with me in the comments. I did a video about a new tactics game in the works by legendary RTS devs Relic Entertainment. Earth vs Mars is an interesting experiment for Relic that does some things that are kinda impossible. Watch that video over here. Thanks for watching and farewell, noble friends.